Good evening, everybody. This is a continued hearing on the project at 728 Randolph Ave. I missed the last hearing, which was on July 12th, but I have watched the video and submitted the affidavit. I understand that since that hearing, we've received a number of new materials for the record, including revised plans, plan set, and other materials from the applicant, as well as some correspondence from the town's peer reviewer, Tetra Tech, correspondence from Ms. McKettrick on behalf of some of the neighbors, as well as some emails that we received in the last couple of days from the fire chief in Milton. So I think that the way we should proceed tonight is to hear from the applicant or the applicant's design team with respect to the revised plan sets and any other revisions that they have made to their plans. Then we can hear from the peer reviewers and then open it up to the neighbors and the public. Does that sound, I'll ask Mr. Gray and Mr. Mullen, does that sound like a good plan for tonight?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Gray, thanks very much for filling in for me last month. I appreciate that.
Welcome.
All right, Mr. Freeman, I will turn it over to you and your team.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. For the record, Peter Freeman, Freeman Law Group, representing the applicant. And I'll simply turn it over, as you suggested, to Deborah Keller, our civil engineer, to go through the plan changes and revisions and in all likelihood respond to the points that Sean Reardon raised in Tetra Tech's letter dated August 16th. If not in full, certainly there might be some back and forth when Sean gives his presentation. So without further ado, Deb, I think you are teed up with your computer.
Yep. So if I can share, I will share my screen. Find it here. So hopefully you see the cover sheet. Yep. Okay.
Yes.
Again, for the record, Deb Keller with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. So as stated, we have made some revisions to the plans since the last hearing. Notably, oops, I want to go in the other direction here. I'm going to get to the site layout plan, and I'll zoom this in so we can see. Some of the discussion at the last hearing was looking to see if we could adjust or shift the beginning entrance of the driveway to the north so that we are farther away from the 736 dwelling. We have, with the revised plans, shifted the driveway approximately 4.5 feet to the north, which has allowed us to provide approximately 18 feet between the roadway and the dwelling currently. Now, so that's a new adjustment. With that, we regraded, by shifting it over, you can see that we have more room along the property line here. We regraded the driveway. We were asked to look at the Driscoll driveway again. We did meet, and I know this was mentioned in Mr. Reardon's letter, but I did reconfirm today that the driveway is graded exactly at 15%. So it is not over 15%, but it's at 15% for the driveway, which is what we had discussed as a maximum for that grade. With the shift to the north with the driveway and making those adjustments with the grading, as noted, the level area at the entrance of Randolph Ave reduced from 50 feet to 40 feet. And with that, it reduced from a grade of 4.3, increased in grade from a 4.3 to a 5.8, which I still believe is within, I know it's pushing the limits, but it is within a reasonable approach to that intersection for a leveling area. I have done other projects where we've had a steeper approach which was acceptable. Therefore, I feel this is within the scope of design for that entrance. Moving along, we did adjust the dog, the dog park. Move up just a little bit here. So we had looked at, the question was looking at making sure we had proper access to the dog park. People could walk down the side slope along the lawn, along the corner of the building here. We wanted to make sure we had accessible. That was one of the comments, an accessible route. Therefore, we do have access out of the garage with a path, a landing and a path accessible to the dog park for the residences. We have also added exterior bike racks for, and this bike rack has a capacity of 18 additional bikes. We had discussed that we wanted more than what was internal inside the garage. We did do, let's zoom down to the landscaping plan. Get there. We did update, I still have it here, the traffic site distance with the shift in the driveway. These plans were updated accordingly. And I think it must be here. So one comment was to adjust the tree line buffer along the north so that we don't encroach in the grass swale in this portion. So that was adjusted, and some additional landscaping was, let's see if I can scroll down. Here we go. Landscaping was added in front of the 736 with the shift. We were allowed, provided area for some additional landscaping and screening along the 736 property. We also added a stone retaining wall at the entrance. It was discussed that some type of barrier here would be helpful in protecting the 736 residents, as well as being a landscape feature on the property. And I believe those are all of the major changes that we made. We did, I know Mr. Reardon hasn't had a chance yet to fully review them, but we did submit traffic management plans, phasing plans for the driveway construction. So that was submitted. With regard to some of the correspondence with the fire department, the original traffic turning movements were met. We didn't have any vehicles encroaching in on the parking spaces, but I have since updated them with this new layout. We did not resubmit them with the adjustment in the driveway, so I have those to resubmit to the board accordingly. I think that covers everything. I don't know if I'd like to offer an opportunity for Andy to address any of the architectural changes that may have occurred.
Sure.
Oh, there we go. Hello, good evening. Andy Zaleski. I'm the architect of the project. Most of the changes that we have made have been on that lower level. Can we shift down one page, Deborah? Here it is, yes. Since we started, this was really just a parking level, but we've added a lot of features in here. We've added the bike rack at the left, which is for 24 bicycles. We've added utility rooms, which are accessible between the handicap parking spaces. So the doors should not be blocked unless somebody had the temerity of parking in there. We also have added a meeting room, and there is now a small mechanical room to serve the elevator and the workout room. And then continuing on, we've added enough so that we have at least one storage unit for each dwelling in the building. We have 40 total storage units. Some of them are double level, most of them are full height. And then the other feature that we add at the far right, you can see the door, which gives access to the dog park, so that if somebody needs elevator access, they can take the elevator down to the parking garage level and then go out that door directly on grade with the dog park. Other choices are to come around, as Deborah described, to come from the front parking area around the lawn. So we have maintained both means of access. If we go back one page, Deborah, I think the best thing to look at is the colored rendering there.
Sure.
I'm sorry?
Oh, the cover?
Well, the one that right here that shows the building, and then we can go to the other renderings.
Sure.
Changes that have been made on the building, quite a bit has to do with colors and materials and siding. The balconies now have a dark or black railing and a darkened edge. They also have a dark color on the siding around the patio doors that come out to the balconies. And the purpose of that is to visually separate the residential blocks of the building to make it less homogeneous as one big building block, and to separate it into more residential scaled elements. It is still a big building, but visually what we're doing here is separating the major elements with the darker color. You can also kind of peek around the end in this view. You can see that there are two sections of siding that are also done in a darker color on the end of the building, on both ends of the building, to give a similar break. And we have changed the texture. We've gone to a wider style clapboard in a different color at the bottom level and added a trim board design so that each of the vertical elements, we have the base, we then have the two-story middle, and then the mansard roof, again, to emphasize the more residential character of the building. Okay, I think we can go to the other renderings now, Deborah. Okay, this rendering has been modified to show the changes. You can see how the driveway has moved, the things that Deborah described. I think this gives you a better view of it. The stone walls, the trees, which give a buffer between the home on the right and our new driveway. I mean, there was some discussion about view triangles. We actually don't have control of things that are off our property. So we're not addressing that issue directly. It's not something we can do on somebody else's property. Why don't we look at the next rendering? Yeah, I think this also shows, you can see the darker colors way back in the building and see how far back the building is from the road so that it doesn't dominate the view. The other piece you can start to pick up on is the residential mailboxes for the two homes. You can see them to the left of the road, but the mailboxes for the residents of the building in the back are now moved up close to that building. And I believe that's been agreed with the postal officials so that we can indeed put it up there. So it takes away a problem of interfering, picking up mail with cars that are entering and exiting the property. Again, you can see a little more separation on the right there from the earlier renderings between the house and the driveway. Okay, Deborah. This is the view from that house at 738. There is some planting and lawn area in between. It just softens the view of the building itself. You can see the handicap ramp in the center of the view blended into the landscaping. And the next one. And this is the view. I'm sorry, what's the address on the other side? 718. Yeah, this would be their view from their driveway and garage area of the building. Again, we've provided some plantings to soften the view. Again, it's enough distance so that the building is not looming over their property. Even though it's a large building, it is set back away from their property. On the next rendering, this shows again a little more breakup in the color and textures used in the building. I guess the one piece they're in, I think the faces of the balconies will also be a darker color below the rails, not just the rails will be a darker color. So it will emphasize those vertical elements. That needs to be corrected on this view. And then this is the view. You can see the dog park. It is screened a little bit from the private road in the back. It is directly accessed on level with the garage. And then people, we're assuming people walking their dogs would walk across the lawn rather than a hard surface so that they could come from the parking area in the front. Okay, and then the final view from the private road in the back, quite a bit of tree and foliage has been added in here to again soften the view. I think it also demonstrates that there is good access here in the case of an emergency. If fire department needed to get at the building, they can get at both major facades of the building. So that I think from a safety point of view, we have excellent access for any type of emergency that might arise. I think that would be it. Do you have anything to add on renderings, Deborah?
The only point that I would add to this note was there's mention of how close the building is to the access road and the setback to, we measured the setback to the property line, but just for clarification, the building is on average about 30 feet from the actual edge of pavement. So there is some distance between the access drive itself and the structure. I believe it's the pinch points are between 22 and 24, and it gets wider in the center of the building as the access road bends around that back side of the building. But I just wanted to mention that for just for a clarification.
Yeah, and that's certainly enough area that we can plant and maintain some good landscaping materials in there and keep them healthy. I think that would be the changes that we've made to the building. We've presented the basic building in the past meetings. So unless there's any other questions, that would be my presentation.
I would just like to ask if Jeff Bandini has any comments with regards to traffic. I think the only change was the adjustment to the site distance plans. Jeff, please correct me if that's different.
Thanks, Deb. Yeah, for the record, Jeff Bandini, project manager with McMahon Associates. Yes, that's the only change at this juncture was to just update the site triangle, site distance plan to kind of show that the site triangles and minimum stopping site distance is met based on the criteria that was originally established. You know, certainly moving the site driveway slightly over doesn't result in any sort of major change to the availability of site distance in this area. That's all this time. Thanks.
So that would be it. Peter Freeman again, that would be it for our presentation, and naturally happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, everybody. I know Sean has his hand raised. I have questions, but I'll save them till the end. Sean, before I get to you, Mr. Mullen and Mr. Gray, do you have any questions now, or would you also like to wait?
I have 3 questions. Deborah, you had indicated in the early part of your testimony that when you were discussing the entrance, that there was a point that I believe it was to the effect of the design was similar to what had been acceptable earlier, and that was the basis of your conclusion that it was now acceptable. But I wasn't completely following that. Would you mind repeating the point that you made? I hope I've described it accurately.
I believe that was with regard to the leveling area or entryway entrance, the initial entrance off of Randolph Ave into the driveway. Is that correct?
I think it was something to that effect, yes.
So what I was explaining with I think I understand the question, is with the shift of shifting the driveway north and adjusting to maintain 15% on the Driscoll, I'm going to call it the private driveway, as it's not part of the shared component of the driveway for discussion purposes. With those adjustments in grading, we previously had proposed a level area that was approximately 50 feet in length at a 4.3% grade. And with these adjustments, we've had to reduce that slightly to a 40-foot leveling area at a 5.8% grade. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just stating that it is a slight increase in the level area, but I believe that it still provides that leveling area prior to the intersection.
I see. And is this the issue? Is this with specific reference to the leveling area? Is this responding to the comment we received from the fire chief?
I'm not 100% sure specifically what that comment was for. My understanding was the driveway max grade could be 10%. That was acceptable to the fire department. So the shared driveway has a max grade of 10%. The parking lot has a max grade of 5% just in this short position section here because we're transitioning down through the 10% here. But the majority of the parking area is 2% or less from a grade standpoint. So it is very level. And I was under the impression that's what he was talking about, because he wanted to make sure they could make that turn with the turning movement. I have to admit, I'm not 100% sure I understand what that fire comment was. So we'd have to get some clarification on that.
Fair enough. Okay. Could you, I know you said that the building is 30 feet from the paved surface of the access road. I can't read that dimension that we're looking at now. What's the feet
Sure.
to the property line?
So the feet to the property line is shorter. We have 13.3 to the property line on this corner and 12, which is the closest at the northern corner. And I don't have a middle, but it's greater than those two dimensions.
Yeah.
If you look at today, the measurement from you can see this is the actual edge of the pavement.
Yeah.
So there's some additional area for buffer between the building and the actual pavement at the access road. And that's where I was coming up with I believe it's approximately 22 feet here. 22 feet here, 24 here. And in the middle, it was over 40. So if you average that that's where I'm getting the average 30-foot setback from the edge of pavement.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. One more question. This is for
Sure.
Jeff. Jeff, did you have a chance to look back in the background traffic modeling and confirm that the HD MW Randolph, I think I've got it right, across the street, the 40B that's across the street, that the traffic volumes are in your projection? And more particularly, have you considered the exit and entrance moves onto 28 from that property and how they might affect this property's entrances and exits?
To answer your first question, yes, we did confirm that project was included in our background study growth. Again, incorporating those volumes into our future volumes. So that was included in our original traffic study from October 2021. As far as the turning movements from that driveway go, no, we just looked at the volumes themselves and not the actual movements. So that would not necessarily be reflected here, but again, as I've said in previous meetings, the site distance from the driveway here exceeds the AASHTO requirements based on the 85th percentile speed. So as far as, volume and visibility and all that goes, should there be some sort of turning movement activity within that site triangle, there would be a clear and purposeful view from folks exiting or entering the site from the site driveway itself.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
No more questions.
Mr. Gray, do you have any questions?
I'd like to hear from Sean because I think he's probably going to take this point. But as I read the comments from Chief Madden in his email, he's talking about the driveway being no more than a 1 in 20 slope. That's 5%. Is this driveway a 5% slope at a max? From what I'm hearing, I think not.
No, because initially our discussions, we were told from the fire department that 10% was the max that we could use. So that's why I'm not 100% sure what the chief is looking for now.
So I'll read you the line from his email this afternoon. It says the driveway roadway must maintain the 5% slope. The only part that can be 10% is the entry exit point of the slope, and that is only for the length of the apparatus.
Yeah, I honestly am not 100% sure what he's asking for there.
Well, I think he's asking for a 5% slope on the driveway, but the beginning portion of it could be up to 10%. That's how I read it.
But it seems a little counterintuitive to the requirements. The current subdivision regulations allow roadways to be designed up to 8%. So I'm not sure how you can have a subdivision road designed at 8% if the fire department wants the road to be at 5%.
And then what I'm reading in his email.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think we need to circle back with him and just get a clarification as to specifically what he's looking for.
Yeah.
That's why.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking he was meaning as we enter the parking lot coming in here, that this short driveway here could continue to be 10%, but anywhere past there where, the fire truck is going to be parked or needs to turn around would have to be less than 5%, which is what we have proposed currently. But I can really work on clarifying that with the chief.
That would be great.
Nick, that would be consistent with my read on the situation as well. So the 10% was pretty clear in the beginning. So in fairness to Deb, I don't see that they missed anything here. So her interpretation is sort of similar to the way I would interpret it, but I guess we definitely have to circle back with the fire chief.
Okay. No, Deb's explanation makes sense if that's what he meant. I'm just looking at it, literally. So that's fine. I think I'll hold any other questions until I've heard from everyone else. Thanks.
Mr. Mullen has his hand raised. Jeff, do
I
you want to go?
meant to ask, yeah, thanks. I meant to ask one more question, and that is, I think it would be helpful to hear from Cliff Bomer on the design changes to which the architect referred. So I don't have a question as much as I just want to put a marker down. I realize that Mr. Bomer is on the call. Thank you.
Okay, I actually think maybe I'm going to get a couple of quick questions in so that Sean and Cliff have some more information. Number one, have there been any revisions regarding snow storage on the site?
So we've added, since we've kept the dog park on the north end of the building, we've added this additional snow storage, but we now have 3 along this side of the building. And then we've added more to the right side of the, near the garage entry. My understanding is Rob has indicated that in the maintenance plan for the property itself, if those storage areas are exceeded with snow, the snow will be removed off-site.
Okay. Speaking of the dog park, can you say anything about the grading of the access to the dog park from the parking lot? Just looks like a steep hill, and I just want to better understand it.
I would agree, it is. It's 4 or 5 to 1 as you wrap around, and it flattens out a little bit more here. But so you do have, it's not a 5%, it's not ADA accessible from the front. That's why we added the access from the garage so that it could be accessible if needed. But I'm just noting there is room on the lawn here to walk around the corner and into the dog park. So it would be lawned, and it's I think the tightest slope in here would be 4.5 to 5 feet to 1.
Okay. This question may be for Andy. The rendering showing the entrance to the site from Randolph Ave has a photo of, or has mailboxes on the left side or north side of the driveway. Are those the mailboxes for 718 and 736?
Yes, that's correct. Those are the residential mailboxes for the 2 homes.
Is that where they are today?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're near well, not that exact, but generally in that area. Yeah.
They're on this side, the north side of the current driveway now. We've obviously shifted them north because we've moved the driveway north, but they are on the same side of the current driveway now.
Seems like a minor point, but seems like a bad place to put them, because given the increased traffic on this driveway, I don't see either home retrieving its mail from that spot. But that's something we could talk about. Oh, okay. One last question is, what is the grade of the Driscoll driveway after this project?
So as it starts at this intersection here where my little hand is moving up, it's 15% up to the limit of work, which is just before the property line, and then it levels out as it comes into the 718 property itself.
Do you know what the grading is now, today?
So if I go back, yep. So currently, you probably can't, let me go to the existing conditions. So currently, this portion of the driveway up until you get to about here is, as stated, on average about 13, a little over 13%. As you come around this bend in here, the driveway is at an 18+% grade, flattens out to about 15, flattens into 10%, and then levels out as you get to Randolph. So that's the condition of the existing driveway itself. Obviously, as you continue into 728, it's in 15% range here, and then flattens out a little bit as you get to the existing. So as for the proposed grading, I feel as though with the 10% combination of the 10% grade on the shared portion of the driveway and the 15% through here, I know this is a slight increase from the 13 that's up in the upper portion of the driveway, but we are eliminating and removing this bend here where we have the steepest slope on the current driveway. So that's eliminated. So you come down, you have a somewhat level area at the intersection, transition into your 10% as you come down to Randolph Ave. And as mentioned, we did shorten up or tighten up the leveling area at Randolph Ave, but I believe it's nominal, but I know we can have further discussions.
And that 18% grade in the bend, you were able to achieve that by making it a kind of a tighter turn? Looks like.
The curve here is somewhat tighter, but it's not really a tighter turn. I mean, you have the same bend that you have. The road is in the same alignment. We're just allowing it to be, so for instance, this is 118 and this is 117, and the existing grades, that's 15, 16, this is 117. So you're matching existing grade here and allowing this to blend in. I want to make sure that's correct. Not happy with my PDF. So, yeah, so this is 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So that would be 115. So we're raising the proposed grade here from 115 to 116, and then keeping the 10%. And as we move across that intersection at 10%, we are cutting slightly in this area because it was at an 18% slope originally, but our aim was to maintain the 15% here along this, what I'd call the sort of their individual driveway prior to the connecting to the shared driveway.
I understand. Is there a stop sign or anything proposed for that driveway where it intersects with the roadway?
We don't have one proposed now because it's a driveway into a shared driveway.
Okay. Those are all my questions for now. Sean, you've been very patient. Thank you. I'll turn it over to you.
Great. I just have a couple initial questions before I sort of get to a summary of my thoughts. First,
Sure.
can we go back to the renderings, in particular the rendering showing the front entrance? So Deb, with the shift in the driveway,
Yes.
you used to have an extension of the wall along the right side, the entry side. With the shift in the driveway, do you no longer need any wall extension above grade to protect vehicular traffic? What I'm trying to get at is you show like the rendering shows like a 6-inch curb here, but my understanding was at least a portion of that was going to extend some 20 inches above grade to act as a vehicle barrier protecting the slope.
That is correct. This should be extended up 2.5 feet. I think it's an error in the rendering, but instead of putting a guardrail on top of the wall, we were extending the wall up to act as a vehicle barrier. Yes.
Okay. And then I think that's a good solution. The question I've got is there any way to know how far back that treatment extends, as opposed to, I would imagine it doesn't have to go all the way back to the building, or does it?
I have extended it from this driveway all the way up. If I hop to the site plan, let me see if I can find it. So I have it extending all the way to, because we have, again, driveways entering the shared driveway on the north side, I've extended it past the parking lot entrance. And I believe it drops down right at this high point here. And then you just have a small retaining wall for that remainder. So you would have it for the full length.
Okay, so we'll be seeing a wall the entire run of that right side.
2.5 feet.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So
in-
the rendering should probably show that, just so everybody's not confused by it. Then could we go to the rendering that is taken from the access road?
Sure.
So this one here, it shows trees adjacent to the roadway, and I think you did a good job explaining how most of that sort of area is within the right of way. So just, can someone just explain to me whether the landscaping plan shows these trees set back off the right of way? Is this sort of location correct, or is there something sort of off in the location of the driveway versus the plantings?
I think they've added this vegetation to illustrate what the general visual would be. But yes, the proposed landscaping is all within property.
Okay, so just for clarity, sort of the extended grass edge here shown is not all associated with the project. A substantial portion of that space shown as green is within the access road right of way.
That is correct.
And what's important, Deb, do you know what the width of that road is right now?
The width of the access road, let's see if I can pan over there. So to me, it obviously varies a little bit through here. I would say it's probably about 20 feet as you come around this bend. It looks a tad wider over here because this is a 40-foot wide right of way, and you can see right here it's about half.
So what the board should appreciate, and the reason I asked the question is, if this road gets used for another use, it's probably going to have to get widened to 24 feet. its alignment may have to change to skew more towards the center of the right of way, and it may need a sidewalk. So all of that space, which is about half of the space between the paved surface and the building, could be sort of used for a widening of the road and a sidewalk. So when you look at the renderings, you need to be careful in terms of what you're expecting there. There may not be the space that's shown on those renderings.
So just hopping to the landscaping plan to show. So as shown on the landscaping plan right here, this is the access road. He doesn't have the pavement shown, but you can see that he's proposing it. That blue line is the property line. So all of the proposed landscaping is proposed on the property. So if the access road was improved, this landscaping wouldn't be, at least shouldn't be impacted by those improvements.
Agreed, but the point I'm making is that the rendering could be considered misleading.
Yes.
So
Fair.
just keep that in mind. And then one last question, Deb, before we move on. Did
Sure.
you look at, with your changes to the driveway slope at 718, did you look at the crest curve to see if there's a risk of bottoming out with your changes?
I did not. When you mean sort of at the intersection transition between the 15 to 10?
No, when you're steepening, so the biggest change is that you're steepening the section of the top section of the driveway going up to 718. So the transition, you're steepening the exit transition from the flat driveway transition. So if you go to the 718 driveway.
Yeah, it's still, from what I can see on the topography, it still is continuing at a 13% and starts to flatten in. So,
Why don't you scroll over to the driveway?
Yeah. So right here, we still have some contouring that's in that 10 to 13% here before it levels out. So we're only working through here.
Okay. And if you could just zoom in real quick to the bottom of that slope.
This upper portion here?
The bottom of the slope of the driveway? Yeah, right where the 118 is.
Sure. I don't know why.
Okay. And just to help people understand the
Yes.
sort of the magnitude of the change, or that 118, there's basically that would cross about 119.25. So there's about 1.5 feet more that grade that's being transitioned in the same space above it. So that's kind of sort of it in a nutshell, that they're getting down to a grade that's 1.5 feet lower at the bottom of that hill. So steepening it about 1.5 feet over that distance.
Yeah, and so we're about 1 foot on the left-hand side, and I correct, you're at about 1.5 feet on the right. So yeah,
okay.
At that grade.
All right, so that was it for my questions. Just quick summary of where we stand with our letter. Did issue a letter yesterday. Sorry for it being late. My apologies. I think in large part, Deb has done a fantastic job at addressing a difficult site. So all of the technical issues throughout the body of the site, I think are as addressed as they're going to be, and certainly addressed to my satisfaction with very few issues or very few exceptions. Most importantly, I think coming out of the last hearing, our concern was for the house at 736 and the risk to it from returning traffic. I think the solutions that they've shown, that the placement of that freestanding wall, is a great idea for protecting the front of that home from turning traffic. I think that's a really good solution. Same thing with giving some protection from the sweep of lights as they turn into the driveway. The offset of the driveway, another 4 feet, again, very substantial change to the benefit of 736, to the point where it's not ideal and it's still close, but I think it could be construed as a net positive change overall. The problem I've got is the changes to the driveway at 718 and the subsequent changes to the approach. I've given no indication that 4.3% was acceptable as a level area. I may not have addressed it as a problem, only because there are other things that seem more pressing. But in our opinion, a level approach is no steeper than 2%. That being said, we understand the challenges that are out here, but under no circumstances are we going to say that a 4 or 5% slope that is consistent and extends to Randolph Avenue meets the standard for a level landing area, particularly given the traffic you've got on Randolph Avenue. So that being said, there's no hard and fast rules as what constitutes level. So it falls into a bit of that gray area, but we will not in any way endorse this as being a suitable level approach to that roadway when we would consider 50 feet at 2% kind of what a level landing area is, if not a 0% or flat zone. And the risks are obvious. If there's no change in slope, if there's a consistently steep slope down to Randolph, you know, the energy of vehicles, the momentum of vehicles is trending in the direction of traffic, which given all the concern that we have on Randolph Avenue and the size of the street and the speed of the cars, not something that we want to sort of endorse in any way. I do think I did get a chance today to look at the constructability issues at the driveway. I thought, again, really great job by Deb and your team laying out a reasonable methodology for how that work would get constructed. I think it's reasonable. It's going to take some sort of cooperation from the abutters, but you know, definitely shows it can be done within a sort of a standard construction methodology. So that being said, I think that the issue is right now is we've got all of the technical issues sort of addressed. The qualitative issues are there and are probably not going to change substantially. I do struggle with the fact that these two opposing interests are in conflict right now. Is you can't make the driveway approach at Randolph Avenue shallower and not exacerbate the issue at 718. Similarly, you can't make the issue at 718 better without exacerbating the issue at Randolph Avenue. So we've kind of reached a sort of a point of tension between the two issues. I think Deb has done the best she can do to sort of draw a reasonable line between the two, but I think we're still at a point where both situations don't quite meet standard. And I think that's our issues are pretty much those two, the approach to Randolph Avenue and the driveway approach to 718.
Thanks, Sean. Mr. Bomer, do you have anything to add?
I do, and if you will tolerate me wandering into civil engineering just for a quick moment, I just wanted to piggyback a little bit on what Sean said. I think he's completely right. It's like developing a tuning system, equal temperament versus mean tone, or whatever it is, where you're compromising everywhere to get something that still isn't perfect, but is a reasonable compromise.
Now you're speaking my language from my musical training.
Okay, all right.
I didn't think anyone else would know what temperaments were, but thank you.
Okay, well, you and I can have a separate conversation.
You're exactly right in your analogy.
Okay. And
I'll Google it after and I'll know it next time, Nick.
Yeah.
I think what maybe offends my ear more, to stick with this just for a moment longer, is just the idea of cars sliding into the roadway, because it is clearly could be a kind of safety issue versus bottoming out, or, you know, I'm not exactly sure what all the trade-offs are, but that does concern me a little bit of just how easy it is, you know, to get some ice patching, and maybe that could be solved some other way. But I think what I'd say is I haven't had a ton of time to review the drawings, but I think, Deb, if you wouldn't mind going to the landscape drawings, because most of my comments actually are about some remaining site plan, I guess, opportunities, maybe.
Oh, he likes to jump on me.
There you go. I think that Sean kind of nailed it as far as having a very challenging site and doing some really good problem solving. I completely concur with that. But I do think when you look at the site plan, uh, you can see it kind of manifests itself that the site is very narrow for what's fitting in there between the width of the building and the parking and the setback from the access road. And as a result of that, the landscape plan is a kind of linear approach to landscaping, kind of wall building versus, maybe a more naturalistic sort of transitioning of landscaping. I think you see that along the north and northwest borders where it's really just a line, a wall that's built with landscaping. It's more effective on the access road side because obviously there's more depth along there. Similarly, the space between the building and the head of the parking spaces, those kind of southeast parking spaces, is really minimal. There's that 5-foot planting buffer. So you can see that the dimensions are very tight, and it ended up with the kind of solutions we're seeing. But I do think that most of the technical issues that have been put out there have been solved, although, as I said, I'm a little bit worried about that slope going down to the roadway. I did want to make some comments, though. First of all, I think you can see it in the rendering and you can see it in the plans that picking up that distance from 736 with the relocation of the driveway. You probably remember from the last hearing that was really one of my biggest concerns. I think that's a nice solution. It has really, really helped, and that's a big difference in my mind. As far as the building, and I'm not going to talk much about the building, although I will say that actually the very simple, basic footprint of the building is further evidence of how tight this site actually is. There's no articulation of the footprint at all. Having said that, I think Andy's work on simple things, color differentiation, siding changes, that has helped. That has certainly, in my opinion, improved a lot on breaking down the scale of the building. As far as the plan we're looking at now, I've got a couple suggestions, and maybe there's some very good reasons why it's not possible. I think I mentioned it before, is the potential for landscaping on that south side of the ramp structure. There is some green space there that currently isn't showing any plantings. I think it's I guess I can safely say it's kind of an extreme solution they've had to adopt in order to create that accessible path to the public way. And I think that it could be in the same way that Andy was talking about, of kind of softening the impact of it. I think that's a pretty easy opportunity to soften the impact of what's actually quite a large built form in the landscape. So I'd recommend looking at that. I didn't see in the plans, and maybe I missed it, but I didn't see any detail about the play space, like what's in that play space. And it may be kind of questioned, and maybe this is just a difference between grandparents and dog owners, but the amount of space for the dog park is significantly larger than the children's play space, and arguably in a better location. And it made me think of the note that's on that drawing in the northwest corner about existing wooded area to remain. And I'm given how tight this site is, are there opportunities for turning some of that into programmable space without degrading the screening effect that may be providing? I don't see the details on the plan, but I think if what we're reading here means that you're relying on that for screening or not relying on it, just more detail in that area that just says existing area would be useful. And I would encourage maybe looking at options to increase programmable open space on the site that could encroach into that space, maybe better as a dog park there, and move the children's space over to a more protected private space. Another question is the plant sizes that you're proposing, that the renderings are evocative and something that, represents what I think most people think they would get at the end of construction. I don't know that the actual sizes of those trees is specified or if it's coordinated with the renderings, but I think it is important to do that one way or the other. If what you're showing in your schedules is what you intend to do, then I would coordinate that with those renderings so we see what it would actually look like at day one. Few other quick comments. Actually, I think that is about it from what I've seen so far. Again, I'm appreciative of that big change at the driveway that really made a big difference. But I do think that the renderings and putting the time and expense into doing those renderings, as usual, they're great design tools. That's really what they're for. And I've certainly learned from them and seen some other opportunities for improving the site plan in some relatively simple ways. I think that's all I have, unless somebody has any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bomer. Does anyone on the board have any questions?
No questions.
No questions. Thank you.
Is there anybody in the public who has their hand raised and would like to ask questions?
There is not. I don't see anybody now.
Thanks. If Tim Cherwinski is on the phone, I'd just like to ask him if Chief Madden is planning on joining us either tonight or in the future. I don't know if Tim is on. I think I saw his name, but
Yeah, Tim is here.
all right. We'll circle back to that.
Okay.
So thank you to everybody for your presentations and for your questions tonight. Thanks to the applicant for submitting these revised plans. I still have a lot of questions and concerns about this site, but I think what we should do is discuss our plan for moving forward. Our next scheduled hearing, I believe, well, I shouldn't say that. I think the current deadline for this hearing has been extended to September 23rd. I think it makes sense to try to schedule something, schedule a continuance of this hearing for some time in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But I'll hear from Mr. Freeman, I guess, on what he'd like to do.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Yes, you're right. It is September 23rd, which is a Friday. I think we did that just to leave a little time that whole week if a hearing is needed that week. I do agree completely. We would like to have another hearing in that time frame. 2 weeks, I think I'm on vacation, but maybe that means 3 weeks. And, whatever has been discussed tonight, I think there can be, it doesn't seem like much work. And I know that there's still going to be likely the tension, as Sean put it, on a couple of those points. But what I see is simply that there would be a hearing in roughly that time frame. Probably that brings it into the very beginning of September. I would hope that perhaps we could also start talking about a decision at that point. But if there is a need because we agreed that we would, that's why we gave an extension on the closing date of the hearing, was not just to finish up all these design changes and things like that, but also to have an opportunity for you folks to discuss a draft decision in a public hearing where both I could comment and, of course, Ms. McKettrick, anyone else could comment. And I still think that would be very beneficial. I think that Judy Barrett and you folks agree that that is beneficial as opposed to having the hearing closed and there can't be participation. So if we have a hearing in 2 or 3 weeks, then there's still time to have one final one in September. which would hopefully be a continuation of discussion on the decision, but certainly at that point would be probably the main and perhaps only focus of a final hearing. So that's how I see it. And I think it's, I think time-wise, we're in agreement with you.
So you're proposing 2 more meetings, one to discuss any final design changes that you'd like to go in, and then a final hearing to draft a decision if necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be useful to at least try to. I don't see any objection. Candidly, I have a draft decision that's almost ready to go. That, of course, I would share with Judy and Tim and you folks. It's the template that was used on the East Milton Residences project when Mr. Leonard was chairman. So again, you don't have to commit to that. I respect that, but I don't see any harm in trying to polish that up and submit it to Judy and Tim, and if they see fit to try to talk about it at the next hearing, that would be great. So again, I don't see any harm in it. I would hope that would happen, but it can be spontaneous, and if it takes too long on the other things, although I don't think it will. I mean, given what we all just heard, and I, by the way, thank all the peer review consultants. Very thorough, methodical, and totally professional and helpful. I don't think that it's gonna take too much time at the next hearing to go over those design and plan things, which is why I'm just respectfully suggesting that it might be helpful to everybody, to just start on looking at a decision.
All right. Well, before
Mr.
we get to
Chair?
that, yeah, is that
Mr.
Judy? Hi, Judy.
Hi, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted you to know that Tim is back on. He was trying to talk when you asked for him and you couldn't hear him, but I think he's now back in the list and may have his hand up. So just wanted to make sure you could see him. I know it's hard sometimes with all these spaces.
Thank you. I did. We're still in screen sharing, so I didn't see him.
Understood. That's okay.
Thanks, Judy. Tim, how are you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
I had asked you about the fire chief.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was able to unmute on my end, and I don't know what was going on. So sorry about that. So yeah, the chief has had his hands full with the fire station construction. So it's been tough for him to juggle the review of some of these projects, but he's making good progress. That the fire station committee meets on Wednesdays, so it's tough for him to break away from that. But what I was going to suggest is we've done this on other projects, would be to set up just a working session with the chief and Sean and the development team, just to kind of face-to-face, figure out these issues, so that the applicant can come back at the next hearing with a kind of, a thumbs up, proposal that meets all of the chief's specifications and everything. I think, rather than, going back and forth with comment letters and testimony at this stage in the game, I think that might be the most efficient way to go about that. So if it would be okay with the board, I'd like to arrange that for next week or the following week.
Okay, so this next question goes out to you, Tim, to you, Mr. Freeman, and Sean, you guys. Is there any reason to think that this meeting cannot happen or would not be able to happen within the next 2 or 3 weeks, and that everyone would be able to come back in 2 or 3 weeks and have a productive discussion, which would be a final discussion, I think, about this proposal?
Sure. I think number one, I appreciate that, Tim. I think it makes eminent sense to do that with the chief. I don't need to be at a meeting like that, although perhaps I would be, but the point is Deb and Sean, if you're available, it could be next week or very soon. I think that makes sense.
I agree with that.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. On the issue of a draft decision, I mean, I think it makes sense to begin the process of putting together, for lack of a better word, a shell of the decision, right? And I'm pretty sure that Judy would appreciate the opportunity to get a head start. So to my fellow board members, I'm going to ask if you agree with that, and if you also agree with the proposed schedule to meet again in 2 or 3 weeks, and then again the week leading up to September 23rd to close out this hearing. Mr. Gray.
I'm in agreement in meeting in 2 or 3 weeks, as long as it's after Labor Day. And I'm fine with Judy taking a draft, having time to work up a draft decision. That'd be
Mr. Mullen?
I agree with that.
Okay. So I think that all makes sense. I think that what we need to do now is pick some dates, right? So
Yes.
for that, I'll turn to you, Crystal.
So I have September 7th on the schedule for the next meeting. Does that work?
I can't do that. All right.
Okay. Would we be able to do a Tuesday? Because the Wednesdays are
That's fine with me.
booked because of the other projects going on.
I can do the 6th. I'm busy on the 7th with the other hearing. And so is Mr. Mullen.
Our schedules are the same. I'm available on September 6th, not the 7th.
Same for me.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I work on a draft decision, would you need me at that meeting on the 6th? I ask only because I have a conflict, but you may not need me at that meeting.
I don't think we do.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to begin the drafting process formally that
Okay.
night. So
Fine. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So Tuesday, September 6th works?
September 6th, and then while we're here, we should also pick a date for the drafting. That would be either the 13th, which would be a week after that final decision or that final meeting, and sorry, so it would be either Tuesday the 13th, Wednesday the 14th, or Tuesday the 20th, Wednesday the 21st.
So the 14th, there's already another meeting scheduled for that Wednesday.
Yeah, for my schedule, that the 14th, I'm not available. The 13th, the Tuesday, it's fine.
I can do all those days.
My inclination would be to do it on the 13th to leave us some cushion before the deadline.
I appreciate that. I agree.
That's fine with me.
Okay, so the 6th and the 13th?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so the 6th and then the 13th. Before we close out tonight, a lot of these issues that are concerning to the peer reviewers and I think to the board members, at least to myself, have to do with the driveway and the access. Town meeting is like 2 weeks after the current deadline for this application. Have you given any more thought to perhaps trying to work with the town on using the access road?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer, and then Tim can also respond because I've been working with him, really phone calls and emails, but my client has definitely said he would cooperate. I believe Tim had said, and naturally, Tim, you'll chime in, that there's, I believe, a special town meeting date you were talking about in December, and that we have been asked to do the plan, the right-of-way plan, with enough details that would be sufficient for being attached to the warrant article, so that there'd be very great specificity on whatever was being voted on. And my client has agreed. Deb, we just discussed it again today. She has time to do it in the relatively near future. That I think works with the timeline, as I understand it from Tim. So the answer is yes. We also, and I think we already discussed it with the board. Unfortunately, the board's going to have to decide on the merits of the present plan. But we have said publicly, if we can have a town meeting vote that makes that access road available, we acknowledge that that would be a good thing, without conceding anything about the design of the present plan. So Tim, is what I said correct?
Yeah, it is correct. The select board set a special town meeting date of December 5th. The warrant for that one, I believe, will close sometime in October, although they haven't quite announced that. I think they'll be announcing that next week. So yeah, Peter and I have been corresponding, and I think obviously their hands are full with the current application. So I think, as we've said in past, in past hearings, I think we need to do our best effort to get this to as good a place as we can, and yeah, but we are working together, and that'll be something that we'll put together, for a special town meeting in December.
So I'm just curious as to how that would work if this hearing is closed and the application is voted upon, and then the town meeting vote happens a couple of months later. How does that all work together? How does the project proceed?
Sure, if I may conjecture, but I think it's actually quite simple. We would have to come back to the board under the 40B regulations with a notice of project change. Even though we know that it is viewed, again, without conceding anything, it's viewed by the board and consultants that it would be a preferable plan. But it probably would, be the right thing to do to consider it a substantial change with, another hearing, which would take notice, but have a hearing that, without being over optimistic, although I am an optimist, it would be really the sole thing to be discussed would be, does the new plan for the access, we'd have to change it on the site too as well. So obviously we'd be looking at that. That wouldn't be part of the town meeting vote, but that would be the limited, although important subject of hopefully one hearing. If it took more than one hearing, meeting once the hearing is opened, that's how it would work. Again, it definitely would be necessary, but the 40B regulations accommodate that.
So this is purely academic, but doesn't that presuppose that this application is granted?
No, because even if it's denied or if it's conditioned in a way that, we feel is not acceptable and uneconomic, yes, state the obvious, we would be appealing to the Housing Appeals Committee, but the procedures there, the regulations also certainly allow a remand back to the zoning board. That happens with great regularity, usually in a way as this would be as an attempt to settle.
Understood, and thanks for walking me through all that. I appreciate it. If anybody else has any questions, speak now. Otherwise, we'll close for tonight.
Mr. Driscoll actually has his hand raised now.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Driscoll. John, if you're trying to speak, you're on mute.
Yeah, I've asked him to unmute.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Did the builder buy 736 Randolph Ave?
Oh.
Excuse me?
No, this is Peter Freeman, his attorney. No.
Yeah, all right, Mr. Freeman, your renderings show that they've grassed right up to that back brick wall right behind their house. And that's like a 3-foot drop, but you're showing a beautiful lawn right up to their back patio. So that's kind of, false advertisement. And the same at our property, you got beautiful hydrangeas and stuff on property that we own. And you got it right up against my garage. And there's a parking area off of my garage, and that's false advertisement too. And I also would like to ask Mr. Reardon about the driveway. Am I gonna have that driveway, they're gonna come up to come up my driveway, am I gonna have a little bit of a hill when I come off their roadway?
Can you rephrase that question? I'm not sure what you're asking.
They're gonna do work on the roadway that the private drive that I have, they're gonna work on.
Correct.
Yeah. Are they gonna lower that from my landing, where my garage area is?
If the plan is correct, they're not going to do it. The changes are exclusive to the driveway as it goes down the hill. So the changes don't extend up into the flat area of your parking lot in front of your garage.
And then I got out of your talk, is they're going to have to deal with us? They're going to have to be sort of civil to us?
I mean, there's no way. They're going to have to coordinate with you to make sure that they can affect the improvements that limit access to your home. So they're going to have to make some concessions to you. For example, they have a phasing plan that shows, a temporary section of pavement and an 8.5-foot wide width for you to get in and out of your driveway that I presume is going to have to be negotiated with you or somehow reconciled with you.
Well, thank you for answering that. And I'm gonna say to this board, this gentleman has not come to us yet. And now he's gonna have to come to us. And I don't see how I can actually work with this gentleman because the test pit that they did in April by the mailbox is sinking. And he has no regard for the people on this drive. He won't come back and fix it. And I shouldn't have to tell you right now, if he cared about this property, he'd seen it and fixed it. So I'm just telling you what I'm up against here. He's not going to be cooperative. This whole thing has been rammed down our throats. And their feeling is you're going to have to take it, Driscoll. And I don't feel it's right. And I appreciate the board listening to all this. And the two mailboxes that are down below is his property and mine. 736, they hand deliver the mail. So I kind of wish the people that want to do these developments get to know the neighborhood. And for another thing, there was a bad accident this morning at 7:30 out here in Randolph Ave, right at Reed Street. And so I'm just I always want to bring this up at the meetings. This is a tough road. And I'm questioning how we all can survive on it when they do all this. And thank you very much. Hello. Yeah.
I don't know if the chair is on mute. I think I've lost his picture too.
Action brief.
Me too.
So I missed the last 20 seconds. Of Mr. Russell. I don't know if you guys can.
I just want to say that this developer has no regard for us. He hasn't come to us yet. And then I hear that we got to kind of get along when he comes to do this project. I don't see it happening, sir. And the test pit that they did down at the mailbox is sinking. And I shouldn't have to bring that to anybody's attention tonight. They're the ones who dug it. And they should come back and fix it. But he has no regard for us. And it's like they're saying, you're going to take this, Driscoll, and that's all you're going to get. And we're going to do what we're going to do. And it's been like that from the day one when we had the site walk. You couldn't even talk. And that's kind of still in my brain that this thing's been geared for him. And he does not care about the neighborhood. And he doesn't care about the town. I don't care what he thinks and what he can say. And the density hasn't even been talked about yet. I'm not for a 4-story building. We haven't even talked about density. It's all been about this bad easement that they're trying to shove down we all should get along on. And I don't see it happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll. Anybody else like to speak? Okay, and with that, we're going to continue until September 6th. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Nice seeing all of you.